Yeah, you can. All right, good morning, everybody. We are going to call the Sales Tax Subcommittee of the House Ways and Means Committee to order this morning. We have on our agenda House Bill 946. That's the only item we have on the agenda. And if there's no objection from the committee, we'll move forward with that agenda. Hearing none, we will do that. We have a substitute to House Bill 946 LC 500730S. Chairman Hawkins, you want to tell us about your proposition?
Oh, yes, sir.
Feel free to be brief.
Maybe I shouldn't even sit down. The substitute strikes lines on 48 through 52, and it's removing the section there about the 0.75%, and the rest of the bill is the same. That's it.
Does anybody have any questions of the gentleman? We've had this at least once, maybe twice prior to. Any questions? And I see no questions. We have a sign-up sheet. Okay. I don't over familiar myself, Martha, but I can't read what your last name says.
Ravello.
Martha Ravello wants to talk to us from ACCG. You can move the senator over, sit beside him, whatever you'd like, or you can take what's behind door number 1 over here. Please, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tell us who you are and why you're here.
My name is Martha Ravello, and I'm with ACCG.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ryan Bowersox with the Georgia Municipal Association. Yeah, absolutely. We are both up here in favor of this bill this morning. It has added a little bit of length to the bill, but in actuality, it simplifies the T-Plus process by removing the ability to go under the 0.75 and the 3-year estimate. Instead, the county would be required to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the municipalities representing 50% of the municipal population. Again, we kept from the previous substitute the protections for the absent municipalities, but we removed the ability to go with less than 50% of that population.
So ACCG supports the bill as in its original form as it states, where if more than 50% of the municipal population signs an IGA, then we can levy the tax up to the full 1%. Now, with the changes of removing the 0.75, we don't see it as a problem since we have not seen it been used before with our counties. In addition to, we've heard from a few of our counties that have tried to use it. They have not been successful. So we don't see it as a problem, but we will have to run this by our policy council just to make sure we take an official position on the bill. And if any of our members have an issue, then we're happy to speak to the author of the bill.
Thank you. So I'm hearing that we are in favor of, we think we're in favor of, but we're going to check, and I think we all understand how things move and do that. Well, it's a golden day at the Capitol when our counties and cities can get together. Any questions for the folks? Any questions? I see no questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We
had other speakers, but they're for another bill. So we are now back to the main question. LC 500730S would move forward as a committee substitute for House Bill 946. Is there any other questions for the author? What's the pleasure of the? There you go. I have a motion. This do pass and a second. Is there discussion? Any discussion? That's all light flash over there. No, hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Moves forward to full committee with a do pass recommendation. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, folks. I think that was the agenda for the Sales Tax Subcommittee, so it will stand adjourned without objection, and we'll move on to your next subcommittee when the chairman is ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the Public Policy and Finance Subcommittee of Ways and Means to order. And
My dad had his own motives for wanting to stick around after.
we will call Representative Washburn. Would you come to the podium and tell us about
It's the Bubba Watson book. It's pretty good.
House Bill 1031, either one you'd like?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We're here to present House Bill 1031. This has been an effort that came out of our study committee that wanted to provide more transparency in the reevaluation process and more notice and some other requirements. Chairman Blackman has worked very hard on this bill, and Representative Kelly has assisted us a good bit on it, so we'll hit the high points. You've got the summary there. One of the major things is when we have a reevaluation, of course, that if the millage rate doesn't change, there's a big increase in revenue, and this deals with us calculating the necessary rollback to make that transparent to the taxpayers, of course. Representative Kelly put some language in. If you'll look at line 34, this legislation requires that this be on the tax bill. The adopted millage rate exceeds the estimated rollback rate as stated in the annual notice of assessment that you previously received for this taxable year, which will result in an increase of the property tax that you will owe. And so we think that's a good addition to the bill. Otherwise, we'll probably ask our friends from ACCG to make some comments about the language, other language in the bill to deal with the digest and appeals and the making all that fit together. So I know that's a very brief explanation. And Mr. Chairman, if I'm leaving anything out, please jump in and help with this. This has really been a group effort on this bill, and I appreciate the help of everybody that has helped us on it.
As somebody in the field for a very long time, I appreciate you working on the bill, and I will open up committee for questions. This is the second hearing on this bill. If there, Chairman Camp.
Oh, I was just going to say, I appreciate you working on this bill. This is part of the work group that we so diligently were a part of this summer. And as someone who sat on a school board and had people come and be very upset when they got their evaluations, I appreciate this language being in, because I think transparency to the taxpayer is the utmost importance. So they can come and be productive members at millage rate hearings. So thank you very much, Representative Washburn.
I didn't. I should have. I did not look at my notes as I should have. This does require that values be reassessed every 3 years, and so that is one of the provisions of the bill. And the 3-year lock in apparently now, if there's an appeal, if this is reduced, if their value is reduced from the appeal, then that is locked for 3 years based on this. So, and I'd be glad to answer any other questions about it. We think it's a good bill. We think it does some of the things that came out of our study committee and increasing transparency and helping the taxpayers understand. And so we think it's a good bill.
Chairman Williamson.
Thank you, Representative Washburn, for your hard work on this measure. You just talked about the 3-year lock if the value is reduced. But currently in code, is it not true that if you appeal and there's no change in value, it's still locked for 3 years? And frankly, this will quit the gaming of the system.
Yes.
By people filing basically hopeless appeals.
Yes.
And with the intention of locking that rate for 3 years.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, and that's an excellent question. I should have pointed that out, so thank you for the question.
Very good point. We do have some witnesses here. Dante, you want to come up? Why don't you come take this one?
And you have the floor.
Good
Good morning, Chairman Stevens, members of the committee. My name is Dante Handel with ACCG, joined here by Steve Swindell, who's the Cherokee County Chief Appraiser. So I'd like to make a few comments on the bill. So looking at that first section with the estimated rollback rate, in conjunction with Section 2, which includes Representative Kelly's additional language on the tax bill if we were to exceed that rate, I think that that's going to reduce confusion for the taxpayer and increase transparency, and so we're supportive of both of those measures. Section 3, Chairman Washburn had mentioned that that would require reappraisal at least every 3 years, which is something else that we're supportive of. Section 4 of the bill concerns the Department of Audits and Accounts sales ratio study, and so that's something that is proven to be an issue for local governments. It's definitely pushing values upwards at a rate faster than I think we'd see otherwise. And if the local tax assessors don't push those values up and we score poorly on those ratios, then there's a hit to the local governments on the Public Utility Digest, which is going to result in a higher tax rate on everyone else in the county. Steve, is there anything you'd like to say on the sales ratio study issue?
Eventually, you can get into penalties issued by the state if a county remains uncompliant. And thank you, members of the committee this morning, and Mr. Chairman. That particular element of this bill is probably one of the most taxpayer-friendly measures I've seen come out of this body this year. We really are being driven to aggressively pursue higher values than we would otherwise be comfortable doing in this market, especially that we've seen over the last several years. And I think that this measure would go a long way to help ease the throttle off of that pressure from the state on the local assessors, and as a result, take the pressure off of the local citizenry too, and taxpayers. So that is a very good measure, I think.
Representative Crowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the sales ratio, and I appreciate you saying that, because the Department of Audits uses a time factor. They don't use the same data y'all use when they're determining the value, correct? They do it, they're using more current data than what you had to use, which makes y'all have to drive them up faster because they're using a later date. And I think that's been a problem, especially in a hyper-accelerated market, that we saw a lot of people outside that sales ratio this year because of that. So hopefully this will fix some of that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. That's excellent. Right.
Chairman Blackman.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I'm restating what you've already said, but basically, the compliance issue, really so many were out of compliance trying to keep property taxes low, right? I mean, trying to keep them a little bit lower for the property owner, and that fell out of compliance. So this would help us along those lines, give,
what we were finding,
in theory.
Yeah, what we were finding was that, Mr. Chairman, that the even if you're, from the tax assessor standpoint, in compliance, our numbers look good. We've targeted the numbers we've always targeted. We were failing by the state standards. So yeah, that has that compounding issue of making tax assessor folks nervous. You want to pass, you want to be seen as doing your job, and when your numbers say you are doing your job and the state comes in and says no, you're falling far short and your ratios are too low and your values as a result are too low, that's what we're facing right now. So
Thank you.
Chairman. Yes, sir. Chairman Knight.
Well, I guess the two previous questions have hit it, but maybe for purposes, this is a very complicated issue, but simplify it, if you will. Put examples to this so that I think everyone understands what's happening and why this is important.
yes, sir. Thank you for the question.
probably the easiest example would be, we're graded on sales ratio, so it's the difference between our value and the tax assessor's office versus what properties sell for. If a property were to sell in February and another property similar would sell in November, the way that the audit department looks at that is, well, you really ignore that February sale and focus more on that November sale. And say there's a $50,000 difference from February to later in the year. Not only are they saying, yeah, you really should be focusing more specifically on that, maybe that last third or that last quarter of the year, their data, they're looking past January 1st. So they're requiring us to see into the future, basically, and establish a value that would, yeah, it would pass muster as far as their methodology goes and as far as how they're testing. But all these properties that have sold in the prior year, our values are going to exceed those sale prices. Well, now you've got an angry citizenry, angry bunch of taxpayers, and you can't justify the adjustments you've made to your digest numbers because your values are now exceeding those sales prices. That's probably the easiest way I can put it.
I think that may help a lot of folks understand why this is so important.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Camp.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Dante and Mr. Swindell. I was going to, just to add upon, I understand when this was codified years ago, we were in the Great Recession, and that was a hopefully once-in-a-lifetime situation. And at that point in time, values were falling so quickly that forecasting the falling values was actually beneficial to the taxpayer. Unfortunately, and I'm thankful, 15 years later, we're sitting here and we're in a very different place, but now it's to the detriment of the taxpayer. So thank you for coming today and testifying. I do think this measure will greatly improve the current situation. So thank you, Representative Washburn, as well.
Since you've co-authored some of the bill, Representative Kelly, do you have any comments?
I just appreciate the work that thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just appreciate the work that the author of the bill's done. I appreciate the opportunity to work with him and the chairman on the issue, and appreciate the partnership with our assessors and ACCG. I had a community that 4 years ago the state came in and said we were out of compliance, and we had to update our digest, and it resulted in a pretty big increase in assessments for our constituents, and it was hard to explain. So I appreciate all the work that's been done to bring some more certainty and to make this process, make property taxes as taxpayer friendly as possible.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the audience want to speak on the measure? Then we are in a position at House Bill 1031 LC 500729S. We've got a move, pass, and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It moves on to the full committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. This being the only measure in front of us today in this subcommittee, we are adjourned.